House of Cards.
TCG.
Guys, Shane here, House of Cards, TCG, coming live to you with a deck profile. We got Invoked Dogmatika. I couldn't be more excited about it. It's such a strong deck right now with the control aspects. It's a little difficult to play, but I'm going to show you exactly how to use it, and also what cards I put in the deck and why. So let's kick it off. Alright guys, so let's start off this deck profile. The first card we have is 3, Alistair the Invoker. So he is your main starter, your first combo piece. So you normal summon him and then you add the invocation from your deck to your hand. And I'm going to do a test hand for you so that you can see that live. Next thing is the Magical Meltdown, 3 of. This, it's your field spell, you activate it, and then you add an Alistair from deck to hand. Terraforming, which lets you search out the Magical Meltdown. Next you have 3 Invocation, which allow you to summon the Invoked Mechaba, or any Invoked, essentially. And then we go into the Dogmatika. So we have 3 Dogmatika Ecclesia. And this is your main searcher of the Dogmatika engine, and really great card, can't be destroyed by battle with a special summon monster from the extra deck, so keep that in mind. Once you summon him and use his effect, you're also locked out of the extra deck, so we go through this combo secondarily. We have 2 Dogmatika Fleur-de-Lis, the Knighted. Really cool card, really powerful hand trap when you have the Dogmatika Ecclesia on the field or any other Dogmatika on the field. He lets you special summon him from your hand if there's a monster special summon from the extra deck on the field. And then you can also negate the effects of one face-up monster on the field until the end of the turn if you control another Dogmatika monster, so something to keep in mind. And then we have the 1 Dogmatika Maximus. That one lets us banish a monster that was Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link Summon from our graveyard and then special summon it. And then during the main phase we can send 2 monsters from the extra deck to the graveyard, and our opponent has to do the same thing as well. So it has a lot of synergy with the extra deck, which I'm going to show you as well. So next we have 3 Nadir Servant, and this card lets you search out a Dogmatika monster, or monster, or Fallen of Albaz from your deck or graveyard. And by doing so, you send 1 monster from the extra deck to the graveyard. So really powerful searcher. Next we have 2 Dogmatika Punishment. This is a ridiculous trap card, so when your opponent has a face-up monster, you target that monster and then you send 1 from the extra deck with an equal or higher attack, and then you destroy that monster. So it has a lot of synergy, like I said, with this extra deck, which gains advantage by sending cards from the extra deck to the graveyard. Next we have 3 Pot of Desires. This is a really great card in this deck because you basically play 3 of all the cards that you need. So it doesn't necessarily hurt you to banish 10 cards from your deck, and it helps you gain a really strong hand advantage by drawing 2 cards at basically no cost. Next we play 3 Triple Tactics Talent. And this card is really a must-have in the deck because this deck is so vulnerable to hand traps. So let's say you summon your Alistair and they hit you with a hand trap to negate the Alistair, the Invoker. From there you play Triple Tactics Talent and you can either take control of a monster they have, you can draw 2 additional resources from your deck, or you can look at their hand and choose 1 card from their hand and shuffle it into the deck, which is insane. It can really mess up your opponent. But normally my go-to is to draw 2 cards, because if they hit you with a hand trap, normally you want the extra resources to continue on with your turn. Next we play the Upstart Goblin. It's just a card. Basically I put it in here because with this deck I want to go first and set up my board. So with this card it thins out the deck, so I draw 1 card and then they gain 1,000 life points. So it just helps me get my resources. Next we have the hand traps, which we're starting off with 3 Effect Veiler. And I chose this one over the Gamma package because this is not a once per turn, and it's a brick in hand less often than Gamma. Gamma's really great. I love the Gamma package, but I was just finding too often late in games it was just a brick in my hand because I had a monster on the field and I could not activate Gamma. So I went with Effect Veiler instead. Next we have 3 Ash Blossom. And the Ash is just an insane hand trap because it hits so many different cards. Anytime they add a card from deck to hand, anytime they special summon from the deck, or anytime they send a card from deck to the graveyard, you can negate it, which is, there's basically all the decks right now are doing that, so it hits almost every deck, which makes it universally good. Next we have Shaddoll Schism. So that plays into our main combo. We want to get this onto, get this card from our deck to their hand and activate it during the opponent's turn to bring out the Shaddoll window and really just lock the opponent out of special summoning. We have 1 Called by the Grave. Just helps us if they're, again, this deck is so vulnerable to hand traps. We want to prevent ourselves from getting hand trapped, and Called by the Grave does just that. And lastly, we have 3 Infinite Impermanence. So this card is just basically, in my opinion, the best hand trap because you can play it from your hand, it can't be hit by Called by the Grave, and it has additional advantage if you get to set it and then activate it during the opponent's turn. So that is the main deck. Let's shuffle these up a little bit. And then let's go on to the extra deck. So with the extra deck, we're going to start off with the Shaddoll package. We have El Shaddoll Construct, App Cologne, and Winda. So the App Cologne we want to send to the graveyard if we don't hard draw the Schism, and that lets us add the Schism to our hand, but then we have to discard 1 card. So this is our key to getting the Schism, and it also gives us a Shaddoll monster in the graveyard so we can activate Schism. Next we have the Titaniclad, the Ash Dragon. That is the main, one of the main searchers of the deck. We send it from the deck to the graveyard, and then it lets us add a Dogmatika card from deck to hand. Next we have Invoked Macaba, as people say. I've always said Mechaba, so I'm sticking to it. That is basically our one of our boss monsters in the deck because once per turn when a spell or trap card is activated, we can send the same type of card from our hand to the graveyard, and then we negate the activation of that card, and then we also banish that card, which is really powerful. So we have our other invoked monsters here, Invoked Aguedes and Invoked Purgatrio. They're more situational in use. We bring out the Purgatrio when we want to, attack for game. We use the Invoked Aguedes when we have a fusion monster in the graveyard to target with it, and it's just such a strong card. So next we use Dragon Master Knight. That's our tech card of the deck. It helps me out the Dino deck. I was having trouble getting rid of the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno because I have to have something with a higher attack to send from the extra deck to the graveyard in order to actually target that monster and destroy it. So I added in the Dragon Master Knight. It's just a cool card anyway. And next we have the Elder Entity Entis, which when it's sent to the graveyard, we can target a card on the field and destroy it. So we use that synergy with the cards in our main deck that send cards from the extra deck to the graveyard, and we get this additional synergy. We have the Mirage, which we use to link off the Alistair to get it into the graveyard. We have the Secure Garden, which we get onto the field as our light target for the Mechaba. And then we have 2 tech cards here. This could really be anything. I chose the Psyframe Lord Omega and the Wind Pegasus Ignister just because they have additional effects in the graveyard. So this really could be anything, but I just chose these 2 because it puts something additional in your graveyard that it makes your opponent play around, which can make it more difficult on them. So the Wind Pegasus Ignister, when it's in the graveyard, if I have a card I control that's destroyed by battle or the opponent's card effect, I can banish this card and then target 1 card my opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. So that's pretty cool. It doesn't come up too often because, like I said, the opponent just plays around it. But it does make it a little bit more difficult on them. And the next one I have is the Psyframe Lord Omega. And if it's in my graveyard, I can target one other card in the graveyard and then shuffle both of them into the deck. So just a recycling effect, which is pretty cool. So let's get that off the screen. Then let's roll into the side deck. So this is not going to be a surprise to see because it's in every side deck. 3, Nibiru, the Primal Being. This hits combo decks really hard. You have to side this because the prevalence of combo decks right now. Then you have 3 Artifact Lancia. This deck is incredibly strong against the mirror match. So what Lancia does, if you're not familiar, it just recently probably gained a lot of prominence because of Dino decks and because of Invoked decks. So if I tribute this card from my hand or face-up field, neither player can banish cards for the rest of the turn. So obviously I need to banish cards because of my invocation, and dinosaurs need to banish the Miscellaneous Saurus to bring out their combo. So this one really crushes them. Next we got 3 Evenly Matched. Just a great card to side in if you're going second. You want to banish the cards from your opponent's field. 3 Cosmic Cyclone. This card, playing against Eldritch or really any deck that has a lot of back row, you can pay 1,000 life points, target a spell or trap on the field, and banish it. So really strong card. Then we have 2 Ice Dragon's Prison. This one I side against Infernoble decks, Dragon decks. If you haven't heard about this card, it recently shot up in value because it's just so powerful. It's a Rise of the Duelist set. So what it allows you to do is target one monster in your opponent's graveyard. You special summon it to your field, but its effects are negated. Then you can banish one monster from both players' fields that have the same type. So that's why it's so good against dragons. It's so good against Infernobles. So that's a really great card. And the last card in my side deck is the Cyber Dragon Nova. And I put that one in there, kind of second guessing it right now, but I put it in there against the mirror match. If someone uses Maximus on me, I send the Cyber Dragon Nova from the extra deck to the graveyard, and it gives me a free Invoked Mechaba Macaba. So that is the side deck. So let's do some test hands for you guys and see what we can do. So let's shuffle this up a little bit, which I'm getting the thumbs up that Tyler here has shuffled for me. Thank you, Tyler.
You got it.
Let's do a little extra shuffling just so you didn't set me up. And let's draw 5 and see what we can do. So this is going first. Let's show you my hand. Fleur-de-lis, 2 impermanents, 1 Nadir Servant. So not a whole lot we can do with this hand. A lot of bricks in this hand, but also a lot of negations. But the first thing we would do is activate Nadir Servant. Let's just put my hand down here so you guys can see what's in it. And we will send 1 monster from the extra deck to the graveyard, and then add 1 Dogmatika monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So I would send the App Cologne from extra deck to graveyard, and then I would add the Ecclesia from deck to hand. So I would activate App Cologne's effect and add the Shaddoll Schism from deck to hand. And Shaddoll Schism effect, I have to discard a card, which I'm gonna go with, let's go with the Effect Veiler. So from there, I normal summon the Ecclesia, activate effect to add a Dogmatika card from deck to hand. And this time I'm gonna go with the Punishment. So we're just going to basically set up our turn so that our opponent has nothing they can do. So then we're going to set the Punishment, we're going to set the Infinite Impermanence, set the second Infinite Impermanence, and set the Shaddoll Schism. And from there we have a hand trap in hand, We have all of this back row hate that we're going to make our opponent not be able to do anything. And unfortunately at that point we're going to pass turn, but we still have a great board set up. So let's do one more really quick test hand. See what we can do, see if we can get full combo. And if not, then hey, maybe we need to change the deck profile a little bit to get less bricks in hand. So let's give this a little shuffle. Let's draw 5. Hopefully we get some way to bring out Alistair the Invoker. And we hard drew it, so not bad. So let's put our hand down here. So the first thing we do is normal summon Alistair the Invoker, activate effect, and we add the invocation from deck to hand. From there, we link summon Alistair the Invoker into Salamangreat Mirage. And then we immediately link summon him away into the Secure Gardener. From there, we activate Invocation. And we banish the Secure Gardener and the Alistair the Invoker. So these guys are banished. And then we special summon the Invoked Macaba. From there we activate Invocation's effect in the graveyard to shuffle it back into the deck and add the Alistair back to hand. So it's a really powerful recursive effect there to get the Alistair right back in hand for free. So from there we activate the Nadir's Servant. We send one monster from our extra deck to the graveyard, the Apkaloon we're going to go with again. And then we add a Dogmatika card from deck to hand, which is going to be the Ecclesia. We activate Apkaloon effect, and we bring out the Shaddoll Schism. So then we have to discard one. And this is in the graveyard. So the Triple Tactics talent is, pretty much dead in hand, so we're going to discard that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is special summon Ecclesia because there's a monster on the field from the extra deck. So activate effect of Ecclesia, and we're going to add the Maximus from deck to hand. So we got to go full combo this time, so I'm glad you guys were able to see it. And then we special the Maximus by banishing a monster from our graveyard that was special summoned from the extra deck. And we activate the effect to send 2 cards from our extra deck to the graveyard. And we're going to go with Titaniclad, and we're going to go with... Let's just go ahead and send the Omega, just to have that resource in the graveyard. So let's move this over here, so that you guys can see what's on the screen. It's always nice. And from there we're going to activate, actually we're going to set the Schism, and then we're going to set Impermanence, and that is our end board right now, because we have a Disruption from Mechaba, we have the Fleur-de-Lis in hand to disrupt, we have the Impermanence to disrupt, and we also have the Schism. So on our opponent's turn, we're going to activate Schism, we're going to banish the Apkaloon, and banish the Titaniclad, and we're going to special summon El Shaddoll Winda on our field. And this card is so powerful because once we have this on the field, each player can only special summon monsters once per turn. So how many decks right now can get around this board right here with all these disruptions with only one special summon? So that is the ridiculous combo that this deck can pull off, if not hand trapped. And there's even some ways to play around the hand traps. So this deck, that's why it's so powerful right now. It's such a great, strong control deck because it's so difficult to play around this if I go first and set up this board. I hope you really enjoyed this deck profile, and stay tuned for more great Yu-Gi-Oh content. This is Shane, signing out.
House of Cards.